Y'all know how it goes. If I start by opening some alcohol, then you know it's gonna be a good one. For you, not for me. I'm gonna be in terrible pain. Cheers. Anyway, if you are not aware, for the first time in a very long time, things are actually looking up for me as a Brazilian. It's 2022, Bolsonaro was voted out of office. The stuff is just going fine for the first time in a long time. So what do? Instead of basking in this status of calmness that I suddenly found myself into, what do? Do I sit back and bask with a good book? Do I sit back and enjoy a good series? Do I just sit back and enjoy a little bit of life with my best friends and my family and the people that I love? No, I sit back and I read Silkfire. Earlier this year, I read a book called Empire of the Vampire. And if you will remember, I said the following. Here's the thing. Empire of the Vampire is the worst fucking book that I've read in my entire life. The worst fucking book that I've read. The worst fucking book. I just want to say to the universe that this was not a fucking challenge. I was not looking for a book to beat Empire of the Vampire as the worst fucking book that I've read in my entire life. But alas, I asked for food and the universe offered me a banquet. And said banquet is made out of pure, unadulterated trash. So this is how I came to read Silkfire. Here's the thing. Empire of the Vampire, I did not like it. Okay, we all know I did not like it. But I can say something in its favor, which is the words, when aligned together, came to create some sort of meaning, right? They came to signify a coherent structure of words, one after the other, which told me at a certain point about a plot, which I did not like. But at least I could understand where it was going, okay? Silkfire doesn't even get that. Silkfire is the book equivalent. If you've gotten a box of Scrabble with all the Scrabble pieces and you dumped it upside down on the floor, and then your dog came and peed on it, and then you scratched all of that from the floor, put it in a trash bag, and put it in a trash can because there's no way you're salvaging that game. If that had happened, do you think anything coherent would have come out of it? Yeah. So please someone tell me, how the fuck did Silkfire get published? Huh? Because there is absolutely no fucking way that this book has any sort of fucking merit. Anyway, Silkfire is a book that gained some notoriety because the author, once again, was incredibly problematic. Apparently, in a previous book, he was being lesbophobic and also a little transphobic, but also people were calling him out on it and he was not responding well, and he was also not responding well to criticism on his book, on Silkfire, because he said that people weren't smart enough to get it. If you want more information on what this author did wrong, I'm going to read Rachel from Reads with Rachel's video in the description below, so you can get in on all of the tea. Suffice to say, this was not a person that the weather in my city is so crap nowadays. It's so hot, and then it's so bright, and then suddenly it's cloudy, and then there's no light. It's so fucking, anyway. It's hot, then it's cold. It's hot and you're cold, you're asking. You can see I'm already losing it and we're not even starting to talk about the book yet. So yeah, this was a book, his previous book, gained some notoriety for being a little lesbophobic, a little transphobic, and a little misogynistic, despite the author being a trans man himself. So I heard a little bit about this controversy and I decided that I wanted to stay away from it because that was a can of worms I would not want to mess with. I'm Latina. I see problem, I run away from it. But I have terrible friends. So my friends were mentioning that this book had many other issues, but the more important was that it was very Orientalist, as you can see for the cover. Because the cover screams Memoirs of a Geisha, but it's just a white dude in a badly built world. It makes no fucking sense. Anyway, and when I saw them talking about it, I was like, should I? And they were like, absolutely, yes, you should. So basically, I'm in the market for new friends. If you want to, you can find my Discord link in the Patreon link that I'm going to link in the description below. I definitely and desperately need friends who will not put me up to this type of shit. Especially you, Rachel. I'm talking to you. Anyway, why did I hate this book so much? Let's examine everything that makes Silk Fire a dumpster fire. Here's the synopsis on Goodreads. Again, I can't be bothered to summarize this at all, but even if I could be bothered, I wouldn't be able to because I couldn't understand shit about this book. So let me read from my phone. Set in a planet-sized matriarchal city where magic and technology freely bleed together, a male courtesan's quest for vengeance against his aristocrat father draws him into an ancient struggle between dragons, necromancers, and his home district's violent history. In the world-sized city of Jadzia, magic and ancient science merge into something dark and wondrous. Korra's life is consumed by power, politics, sex, and vengeance, and as courtesan to the wealthy and powerful, he is privy to all manner of secrets. He knows meddling in politics is dangerous. Still, he is willing to risk everything to stop his father from seizing the imperial throne of the War District. But Korra soon finds that the corruption runs far deeper than just one man. During a tryst in an ancient tomb, in the pursuit of political influence, Korra encounters the dying god, who imbues him with the powers of one of the city's sacred dragons. Suddenly, Korra finds himself a hunted man, threatened with becoming a pawn by whoever finds him first. If the wrong person discovers his secret and lays claim to his powers, they would plunge their world into war, unleash untold horrors, and destroy the city and the two people he has come to love. I will be honest with you, I usually don't like synopses that are this big, but the only reason why I could understand literally anything about this book was because it was basically laid out in the synopsis. Because if it wasn't for this, I would be so lost. I would be completely and totally and utterly lost and confused about the nature of this book. I would not be able to tell you a single thing that has happened, but I can, unfortunately for the both of us. So here's what I left behind on Goodreads. You can still find it if you look for it. Silk Fire has destroyed my ability to read and review books. No matter how bad the book is, I always find myself thinking, well, at least this is not Silk Fire. Zabe Ellor may rest easy, however. He may not have been able to write a single cohesive line in this behemoth of a book, but what he did was write something that has stuck with me. Since finishing Silk Fire, I haven't been able to read a single thing. Every time I try, I am reminded on how this book completely butchered the mere idea of words, and I physically cannot carry on reading. If you want to yearn for the sweet embrace of death, or at the very least wish that you were illiterate so you would never be terrorized by this book again, then by all means, read it. I, however, regret ever being born, because if I hadn't, I'd never have to read about a brontosaurus steak and being chosen by the gods while being railed in a temple. 0 stars, and I stand by it. I want to say that this book is so fucking bad that my roommate is not necessarily a person who reads as much as I do, but she reads and she likes stories. And she heard me talking to my friends of the UDR on Zoom, and she was like, the fuck? So this book terrorizes even people who are not in the community. So this is not a me issue, it's a book issue, okay? But it's not the only issue, so let's discuss it. So today, since I'm going to develop this even further, as the Queen Marília Mendonça once said, ninguém vai sofrer sozinho, todo mundo vai sofrer. Let's start. Listen. Y'all know that I like to structure my video in bullet points of things that I'm going to talk about, and usually I have like very long drawn out scripts of the things that I want to say. This time, I physically cannot do this because this book eludes my capability and my ability to summarize anything. I can't even form a single coherent thought about this book that isn't just a huge so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start at the beginning of the book and see where it gets us. The book opens like this: names and pronunciation. This is the first fucking page. Now, you might be wondering, the fuck is this shit? But here's what it is. Actually, I don't know. I got nothing for you. I also don't know what the fuck is this either. No one can convince me. Like, I actually have actual footage of Zabe Ellor trying to put down these names. Wait a second. I'm gonna get to it. Okay. So this is how he did it. This is how he came up with these names. Are you guys ready? So he did this, and he did. And then he said, well, that's good enough. Not sure if you guys realized this, but I just did that to the rhythm of Perfect by Simple Plan, which is probably what he listen to while reading this book. We're gonna get to it. I would also like to point out the complete anarchy of accent marks. The accent marks do not denote the point of emphasis of the word. I think they're just there because he thinks that the accent marks actually look cool, and not to serve any sort of purpose. And I think instead of that, I think that what the accent mark really denotes is the amount of time that he accidentally touched that one button on the keyboard that changes the language of the keyboard, and then you're all fucked and you start adding accent marks when you shouldn't. Yeah, that's what I think the accent marks really denote. And then he saw it and thought it was cool, and he was like, yeah, I'm keeping that. So anyways, point is, I am now gatekeeping accent marks from the white queers. Such is life. We start the story proper after that amazing, brilliant introduction. And this is, listen, this is page 1, okay? The main character, who I'm gonna call Korshitsu, because I honestly cannot pronounce that name. He's at a wedding as a hired escort / prostitute to a guest, which, you know, fine, pretty woman, whatever. But what happens is that he is sitting at the wedding, and the father of the groom is walking the groom to down the aisle to where the groom is going to be wedded, right? The father of the groom stops midway. He stops in the middle, turns to Korshitsu, and says the following: "Whore," the groom's father growled, "you who humiliate chaste men and rob essence from our marriages. Behind that pretty face, your soul is shit and worms." Then spits on him, and then finishes taking the groom to the altar. It's okay. I can do this. I can do this. I can finish this review. I can do this. I can do this. Tudo posso naquele que me fortalece. Repercussions from this? None. Not to the father of the groom for basically humiliating his entire family because he couldn't control his own disgust in the middle of a wedding, and no repercussions for Korshitsu any whatsoever. No one faces any repercussions for this. This might as well not have happened. This is how important this scene is in the great scheme of things. So, yeah, but there is a reason why Korshitsu is so willing to put up with such a treatment, because you see, he has a plan. His father is running for the seat of an imperial whatever. I really cannot remember exactly what he's running for, but he's running for. And there's a woman who is the opposite candidate. And Korshitsu really wants that woman to win, so his father will take an L for once in his life. And so he really wants to ally with her and make sure that, oh my god, so many mosquitoes. Merda. He really wants to ally with her and wants to be her ally because he really wants his father to lose. So what does he do? Does he try to find ways to suddenly get close to her and start getting her to like him, something very subtle? No, that would be an actual good book. We're talking about Silkfire here. You remember? So what he does, he walks straight to the woman. He says, "Hey, can I be your campaign manager?" And she's like, no. And then he's like, "The world doesn't like me. Nothing that I want ever goes proper. No one treats me like I deserve to be treated. This is all just so unfair. I'm sorry, I can't be perfect." You got the perfect by Simple Plan, right? After that, from then on, it's just a recollection of what the fuck moments, which I shall recount in order as they happen. Moment number 1, this dialogue right here. "We have fucking at home," said the hornblower, accent clipping her words. "I am Tamadza of the 12th River. Why should I buy flesh when I can love at my leisure?" We have fucking? We have fucking at home. We have fucking at home. There's a bunch of references to dinosaurs for some fucking reason. Like, they eat bronto steaks and they also ride dinosaurs, but this is never explained. Nothing in this world is ever explained. Nothing. But it's just that it's just so jarring. Like, why are there dinosaurs in this all of a sudden? Like, why? What is the purpose of the dinosaurs? Where the fuck did the dinosaurs come from? Did the dinosaurs somehow survive the extinction, or has this world never had an extinction? And so thus the dinosaurs actually still exist, but there is an extinction coming, and thank God it's coming, because then everything in this world will be gone and I'll finally be free from the terror of this book. Maybe. But this is never explained. No one really bothers to tell me anything. But what they do bother is to tell me how to pronounce those impronounceable names that exist. And I can't remember a single fucking one of them because they're too hard to remember. I said this on Twitter and some random person came to me and like, they really sound like Asian names and you shouldn't make fun of it. That's half of the problem. Because why are these random white people and one black person being called by these names that sound suspiciously Asian? Asia is a very large continent though, so I can't be sure, but I would say that they don't sound that Asian. They do sound like the keyboard smash that I was talking about. And and the best part is when you call the author out on it, it's like, you're just not too smart to get it. There is a place in hell the lowest levels for people who respond to criticism by saying, oh, you're just not smart enough. That. Whenever someone says that to me, I really consider taking life without parole. That's all I'm going to say on the matter. Listen, I'm a PhD candidate. Not that being a PhD candidate means I'm smart. It just means that I'm very used to reading very difficult works. I read the majority of Judith Butler's works, and I'm still alive and I still love Judith Butler. So my problem, I don't have a problem with difficult writing as is. But please, let me know. Please tell me if this is me being picky or if this is me being dumb. Because listen to this paragraph and tell me if this makes any sense to you. Barbarians. Rhea flicked a switch on her bracer. Gold facade slid off its carvings of Triceratops horned giants. Orange hold fires simmered beneath, blocks of hammered molten color. Flames gathered in her palm, rising and stretching like a cat, drawing eyes and worried whispers from the crowd. She gave her flask and the motoring ship to me. Put that on ice for me, pretty boy. I think I'm having a stroke. Some stuff happens after this. I cannot stress just how much I cannot remember anything that happens in this book because of how bad it is. And that is the level of writing that I'm talking about. If you want to understand like what Silkfire looks like, it's like this paragraph, but like 500 pages of this. I am not even fucking joking. I had to like sift through. It's like, you know when you're cleaning your cat's litter box? But your cat had a really bad stomach day, so your cat shat a lot, and then you're just picking out all this poo, and you're like, is there, like, is it even, do we even have litter in this litter box anymore? Should I just throw the whole thing out? That's exactly what I had to do with Silkfire, because for me, it was just like one whole litter box stuffed with poo that I had to sift through to find something that it was worth talking about. But I could find nothing. All I could find was more poo. You know? So it's not necessarily a book that I enjoy talking about, as you can see from my demeanor and my overall disposition talking about this book. But yeah, I can't really recall what happens in a majority of this book. But I can recall the moment where Korshitsu gets his dragon. And I wish I couldn't. I really wish I couldn't. And here's how it happens. He's fucking this guy in this abandoned temple. And I have it open right here. Which, by the way, it's an actual line from this scene. Okay? Bear it with me. I've done everything for my wife, Jasho said. I built our salvage company. I raised our child. I won't be slut-shamed by some doll. Oxalá, meu pai. After this amazing dialogue, they start falling through the floors until they found this glowing orb thing. But here's the thing, okay? They're fucking before they fall, and they continue to fuck while they fall and after they fall. Now, I'm not sure if just me being built different. I'm not sure if this is something that I'm not sure if I'm not that sex positive, but if I'm having sex with someone and the floor caves in and I fall, I think I'm stopping. I think I'm like, maybe we should continue this when we're not falling through floors. But no, they're latched together for somehow. You know when dogs are fucking and then they're latched together, you're not supposed to pull them apart, otherwise you'll hurt the dogs. I think that this is what's happening. And this reminds me, unfortunately, of ABO dynamics. And if this is the case, if ABO dynamics are a thing in this world, then I'm happy it's at least understated because it's not overt. It's not overt ABO dynamics, but that's the only explanation that I can have for they falling through the floors, fucking, and continue falling through the floors, fucking, until they fall on top of a glowing orb thing and continue to fuck. And then a dragon comes and it's like, you taking up in the ass, it's you. And then gets into the guy. The guy who's fucking him doesn't notice. There's only one explanation, and that is an alpha's. Anyway, he never mentions ABO in this, but if it's ABO, honestly cannot tell you how much pain I'm in. Also, it's very bright in my room right now, so it's difficult to keep my eyes open. This is only 16% of the book, by the way. 16% in. That was what I was subjected to. Yeah? Anyways, I read about 40% of this, and then I decided that I didn't actually hate myself that much, and so I didn't actually want to carry on reading. This is all to say, and all to lead me to my main point, which is, if Silkfire was just bad, then that would be one thing, but it's bad and actually harmful. So let's discuss a little bit about not only just how bad Silkfire is, but also how harmful it is to people, and how it depicts some really strange and stupid ideas about gender that I don't think that the author thought through. And if the author thought through, I'm very concerned about him. Because it's like, it's bad, but it's also harmful. It's like, when I say harmful, I'm like, how the fuck did this get published? That's the only question that I have. I know that the author works in publishing, but there's no way that publishing would just stoop this low. It's just like, it makes no fucking sense. And like, listen, I'm not even touching on the Orientalism because I feel like there are more people outside of me who can discuss that better. And so I'm gonna leave a link in the description below if you're interested in seeing people who are way more knowledgeable in this aspect than I am talking about Orientalism and just how harmful and insidious it is in Silkfire. But what I want to talk today to y'all is gender. What is the problem here? Zabe Ellor doesn't understand gender as a system of rules and values. He understands gender as random acts of violence, right? So this is a problem with Zabe Ellor. He departs to write this book from a gender-bent perspective. He departs from a very deep misunderstanding of what gender is. He thinks that gender are random acts of violence. And this is why he thinks that a matriarchy would be just like a patriarchy with men, because a patriarchy are random acts of senseless violence against women. And so a matriarchy would be random acts of senseless violence against men, because the two are equivalent in that regard. So when he writes a woman violently assaulting the main character, this is what is going on in his head. Like, this is what a matriarchy would be, same violence with different actors. In the end, his understanding of gender oppression is just that gender oppression is people being assholes to one another. So it's men being assholes to women, right? And that gender isn't something that exists for a specific purpose, but rather as a justification for needs to power, personal and individual need to power, okay? And this is just such a massive misunderstanding of what gender is and how it actually works, because it's almost like if gender is just the word for people liking to humiliate and sexually assault other people. And here's my issue with it. The violence that women face in a gendered society exists for a purpose, and it is maintained for a purpose. This inversion of roles without understanding precisely how these roles came to be only makes this, and the commentary that he's trying to make, this empty parody of the violence that women actually face in society even still today. And this, friends of mine, is disrespectful as fuck. Think of something like this, right? This is one of the main works of art by Picasso. This is Guernica. We all know Guernica. We've all been privy to Guernica, and we all know that Guernica, what Guernica stands for. This, however, it's one of the main first works of art that Picasso did as he was a student. And you can see there's a huge difference in style between the two. One is more traditional and the other one is more experimental. Why is this a thing? Because Picasso first had to learn the rules to paint, so then he could come up and break those rules in a way that makes sense. And if you put this into an AI, for example, and you tell the AI to paint the first picture in Picasso's style, the AI will not be able to emulate Picasso. He will only be able to imitate Picasso. So he won't understand what were the rules that Picasso was breaking deliberately in order to come up with the works of art that he is most famous for. Instead, he was just going to do something randomly, vaguely modernist-like and think that this is enough to be a Picasso. It isn't, because the genius of Picasso is just how deliberately he's breaking the rules, because he knows the rules beforehand. And this is exactly the case with Silkfire. Zabe Ellor did not take the time to learn the rules beforehand before trying to break them. And when he broke them, instead of actually punching up to the patriarchy, he punches down on women who suffer with the patriarchy and pretends that they are the villains in this world and that they should be hated and that he feels justified in hating them as much as he does. The author came under fire a while ago for talking about almost as if all trans-exclusive radical feminists or TERFs were lesbians who hated men. And this is why they're TERFs, because they hate men. And so one would think that they would know what radical feminism is before emulating it on this book. Because here's what he does. He emulates, and this is why I'm very concerned about the mental well-being of this author, he emulates radical feminist theory on this book, like straight off the bat. Because here's what happens. In this universe, you have something that is called essence. And essence is something that can be transmitted from person to person when you have sex and when you have an orgasm. So if you have an orgasm, you end up transferring that essence to another person. It's usually the man who transfers the essence to the woman, and the woman usually gets this essence and gets to do all sorts of things with it, having powers and whatnot. And this is the center, or so he says, the center of gender oppression in this universe that he created. That is radfem rhetoric. I have no way else to explain that. Because this is simply gender essentialism. Gender essentialism is the idea that there is a single moment, a single defining moment that will create gender as we know it. And gender essentialism is central to radical feminism, is central to the understanding of radical feminists about gender. For instance, you have people like Robin West who will say that women are so different that their own lives and the way that they feel things, the way that they experience their own lives is different from men's, because they have different inner worlds than men. And the reason why women have different inner worlds than men is because of reproduction. But more than that, I think it's so weird because Zabe Ellor deliberately replicates the theory of one of the largest and more well-known radical feminists that exists, which is Catherine McKinnon. And listen, if I thought that this book was somewhat good, I would think that this would be deliberate, but I don't think it is. I think that he just reached that by accident and ended up just being stupid, because I don't think that he could be able to be this underhanded, seeing as he's not that good of a writer. Because listen to this paragraph. Only by our father's stupidity, uneven pink blotches spread across his cheeks. I'm the judge's son. You're a whore who eats ass for breakfast. There is no true kinship between us. You're right. How silly of me. To believe we could be brothers, my anger boiled free. He had every reason to hate me, but he called me whore like it branded me. I'm hotter than you, smarter than you, brighter than you, and your wife enjoyed fucking me. Korshitsu could have broken into song right this second and started singing Don't You Wish Your Girlfriend Was Hot Like Me, and it wouldn't be the wildest fucking thing that happened in this book. I will tell you that. But in this perspective, if people have this essence, and when they have sex, this essence is taken from them, and so they become dull, and they become powerless, and they become oppressed, that is exactly the idea that Catherine McKinnon has of gender. She says women are women because women are forcibly expropriated of their sexuality. And also, before some turf of red firm comes to my comments and go like, actually, I'm going to you guys beforehand, because I'm a PhD candidate. I have a master's degree in feminist legal theory. I studied this since I entered college. There's been 8 years of me just studying feminist legal theory. I know what the fuck I'm talking about, seeing as radical feminism really began within feminist legal theory with Catherine McKinnon. So before you school me, let me school you on something, okay? Radical feminism is not radical feminism because it seeks a radical transformation of society. It's radical feminism because it wants and seeks to reach the root of women's oppression. Radical feminism wants to understand women's oppression as is. In the words of McKinnon, she literally said that. And so if it doesn't have gender essentialism at the core of its thought, it's not radical feminism. Sometimes it's just fascism. And also, don't come at me with all the not all radical feminist bullshit, because the core of being radical feminist means being gender essentialist, which means that necessarily there are some people who are going to be excluded from the concept of womanhood. So if you say that women are all people who have wombs, there are people who are women and have no wombs. If you're saying being a woman is being able to reproduce, there are countless of women who are not able to reproduce and are still women, and no one doubts that. And so if you come here and you say, oh, not all radical feminists, because not all of us are gender essentialists, then you're not a radical feminist. I'm so sorry to tell you this. I don't know what the fuck you are, but you're not a radical feminist. Because if you were a radical feminist, you would be trying to find women's oppression as is. Anyway, as you can see, I hate gender essentialism, just so you guys can know. This is what I wrote in my thesis about it. By centering that all women everywhere are defined by this core violence, McKinnon aims to see women's oppression as is, meaning without any other categorization besides being a woman. But can we confidently say that there is no such thing as a pure, unadulterated woman's experience? Martha Mahoney argues correctly that while defining women by what is done to us might center our shared experience on the grounds of this specific harm, it also undermines other forms of oppression that might be at play. It also lays the groundwork for undermining of the privileges certain women possess in regards to their own race or social status, so that the criticism laid on white women becomes an attack on women rather than a call for accountability when it comes to racial relations. And I also wrote, the problem with this essentialist approach, therefore, is that women's lives cannot be boiled down to a single core experience because there might be no such thing as a core female experience. Aspects of gender, race, class, nationality, ability, sexuality, and many others profoundly shape how women experience their lives, not in an arithmetic method of adding one oppression to the other, but in the ways in which the allocations of power will shape their possibilities of living. Anyway, there is this author who I really like, and this is the last thing that I'm going to read, who says the following. Essentialism in feminist theory has two characteristics that ensure Black women's voices will be ignored. First, in the pursuit of the essential feminine, woman is leached of all color and irrelevant social circumstance. Issues of race are bracketed as belonging to a separate and distinct discourse, a process which leaves Black women's selves fragmented beyond recognition. Second, feminists, essentialists, find that removing issues of race, they have actually only managed to remove Black women, meaning that white women now stand as the epitome of woman. Both processes can be seen at work in dominance theory, but by the time that McKinnon has finished elaborating her theory, Black women have completely vanished. Remaining are only white women with an additional burden. So gender isn't a core shared identity. That's what I want to say. Gender isn't a core shared identity. Gender is something that is done, that you do, and is a consistent making. There is no central point where you can go, oh, that is gender. That is the origin of gender. That is the origin of women. That doesn't exist. You can't say that. And having this author come around and say that gender is this fundamental taking of your sexuality just reinforces radical feminist stereotypes, which apparently he was so against, which just leads me to believe that he knows absolutely jack shit of what he's talking about. So he doesn't even know about radical feminists, but he doesn't even know nothing about gender either. And listen, I don't want to psychoanalyze this author, but what I have a feeling is that he's kind of pissed that his identity as a man doesn't protect him from harm. especially sexual harm. And he's very confused about the fact that he was supposed to be safe from that because he's a man, but he's not. And so he just did a complete 180 in his head and decided that, well, now women are the perpetrators. And so he created this entire universe just to talk shit about women. So instead of looking for a therapist, this motherfucker sat down and wrote this book, and now we're all worse for it. So, because like, what's the message here? Because he doesn't understand gender as something that is collective. He doesn't understand gender as something that is a shared responsibility. He doesn't understand gender of any of those. He just understands gender as people being assholes to one another. And so what is, like, is sexual violence the only violence that counts? The other types of violence are not necessarily important? Like, what's the point of feminism then in this understanding, in his understanding? Instead of looking for a fucking therapist, he just decided to be violently misogynistic against women, and that was it. The point is, after all of that, is that I don't really care about the book that spends just so many pages vilifying women and making women seem like absolute garbage. And I don't care about a book that is just so violently misogynistic, no matter who the author is. And I don't have to hide my criticism to safeguard the author's feelings, because clearly the author had not thought or considered that other people's feelings could be hurt in the meantime. I don't have to pretend not to be bothered by his virulent misogyny just for the sake of his comfort. And also, this book is really bad. For instance, look at this dialogue. Oh shit, fuck, you're a dragon. I know, I gasped. I'm sorry. Like, I fucking can't with this shit. I can't. Oh shit, you're a dragon. Oh, I'm sorry. What the fuck? Like, this book is so bad. So far, anyway, to sum it up, Silkfire is very badly written. The plot makes no fucking sense. This book hates sex workers. It's 400 pages or 500, I don't really know, I don't give a shit, of the author creating a universe where he feels justified in hating women. He lashes back at everyone who tells him that he's wrong, and he's convicted that he's amazing. And all I have to say is that you're not a genius, bro. You just suck. Finally, just so people won't accuse me of hating radical feminisms, I want to end this on a quote of Andrea Dworkin when she says, "You do not teach someone to count only up to 8. You do not say 9 and 10 and beyond do not exist. You give people everything or they are not able to count at all. There is a real revolution or none at all. So any gender liberation has to be total, and it has to depart from society. And a shitty book like Silkfire is actually doing more in favor of the patriarchy than an actual gender liberation." Anyway, that was it. If you read this book, why? Also, I'm so sorry, because you're a dragon. I know, I'm sorry. Like, what the But if you did read this book, let me know what's the most outrageous part you remember, because I honestly can't remember much. As for me, I'm gonna finish the rest of my beers, and then maybe I'll open some wine, and I'll get drunk enough to forget that this dumpster fire was once read. If you liked my suffering, my Ko-fi is in the description below. Consider buying me another beer, because I'm going to need. And also, if you want to see more content like this and vote on what book is going to make me suffer terrible damage for the next hate read that I'm doing, you can check my Patreon also in the description below. I can't talk about this book anymore. I hate this. Anyway, see you guys. Bye.